Alrighty. So, this is a video that I have wanted to make for a long time. For a long time, I've wanted to make a video talking about modern games media, games journalists, all that stuff that would require me to put on a hazmat suit, say goodbye to my family, possibly to never return, to go down into the sewage that is Twitter and the circle of games media, and to dig up the buried nuggets of filthy corn that are down there, to talk about the subject with you all. And I've waited, and the reason I've waited is because I don't want to become a channel where literally I release video after video after video after video every week, where I talk about something having to do with a specific game journalist that I just find, like, a situation that I find just horribly stupid, or something somebody says, or a bad take on Kotaku or Polygon or any of these other sites. I could flood your guys' subscription feed with stuff about that, but I've waited. I've been patient. I've bided my time. And like a lion that has been staring at a gazelle for God knows how long, I am finally ready to pounce, because I've waited for something that I can springboard off of, that feels right, that passes the let's sleep on it, and if I feel the same way the next morning, I'll do a video about it. And this is the one where I've had quite a bit of time to think about it, and you know, because I want to choose how I springboard off of this very carefully. And I feel like this topic that I'm going to cover today is the right one to do it with. So, yesterday, the Sacred Symbols podcast from Last Stand Media, which is run by former IGN and Kinda Funny alumni Colin Moriarty, who I'm a big fan of, who is one of the very tiny handful of media personalities in this industry that I actually really enjoy listening to. I think he is incredibly sharp. I think he's able to like argue with people in a very interesting way, debate people very strongly. He is also like my personal interactions with him have always been very courteous and very intellectually stimulating. He runs an incredibly successful company, Last Stand Media, on Patreon, which, full disclosure, I support. I pay $5 a month for. I think it's wonderful. It's one of the best values, I think, on Patreon, honestly. And I'm saying all of this because I also have to say that I do not agree with Colin Moriarty on many things, especially politically. There are quite a few things that Colin Moriarty has said that I'm like, yeah, no, I don't exactly agree with that. But that's okay, because I feel like in the real world, we should be able to still associate with people and talk to people and respect people that we disagree with, especially politically, right? You know, some of the nicest people I've ever met in my life, some of the people that I hold the most amount of respect for, are people that I disagree with whole cloth on a lot of things, ideologically, politically, you name it. It's a lot of people. I have friends that have openly endorsed politicians that I may hate, or ideas that I find questionable, but that's okay. Because as a society, we should be allowed to live amongst each other, even though we might disagree with one another, ideologically, politically, that whole thing. You know? I feel like we should. And the reason I'm saying all of this as well is because on the most recent episode of Sacred Symbols Plus, which is their Patreon exclusive little extra episode they do on top of the Sacred Symbols PlayStation podcast, they had on a games reporter from the Washington Post named Gene Park. And to be honest, I have never followed Gene Park's work. I don't think I had ever heard Gene Park speak until this podcast. And it was a very good episode. I enjoyed listening to the both of them talk to each other about a variety of topics. Gene Park came across as a very respectful, nice person who also wasn't afraid to push back on some of the things that Colin was talking about or the opinions that he expressed. And it felt like a very nice discussion. It was a really, as I said, intellectually stimulating discussion, which is why I really like some of these Sacred Symbols Plus episodes. And, you know, it was definitely predictable what was going to happen afterwards. And I know that Gene Park is colleagues with a lot of the friends and colleagues with a lot of like the usual suspects on Twitter, the people who form their own little like bubble and circle jerk where they're just like, keep out anyone that doesn't agree with us 100% politically, people that we deem problematic for reasons. And that's unfortunately what happened with Gene Park, because once it was revealed that Gene Park was on this podcast, and he even like put it out there on his Twitter account. Oh my God, the blowback that this man who committed the cardinal sin of going on a controversial figures podcast and trying to just like talk about certain things with them. Oh my God, what a horrible crime. What a horrible crime to accept an invitation from somebody you wouldn't normally associate with, and politically or may not, like, not on the same wavelength, like thinking wise, and talk about things with them. Oh my God, what a horrible tragedy. But Gene Park, he also, I guess, is experiencing long COVID, so he's been like royally fucked up medically for like the last few months from what I could get out of the podcast. So it's been rough for Mr. Gene Park. And I have a lot of respect for Gene Park for going on that podcast. I think he did a really good job. He must have known. He had to have known the blowback he was going to get, and I respect him all the more for doing it. But my God, the blowback that this man has been getting from his so-called friends and peers is just, it's depressing. Like it really solidifies how poisonous and hypocritical games media really is. Like, and this is kind of a situation where I could start in a number of areas, but I want to first go over this idea that this myth that a lot of these folks have been, and I'm not going to name a lot of these people because I don't want to encourage anyone to go and like find them on Twitter and like tag them and like criticize them or anything like that. But I guess I'll start there too. Is, you know, again, there's just a number of ways I could start this because it's just such like a wide-ranging thing that covers all these different topics. So I'll start with this myth that Colin Moriarty encourages his fan base to go and attack people, to harass them. One, that doesn't happen. Colin Moriarty, in the years upon years upon years I've been listening to him, ever since he left Kind of Funny and has started Last Stand Media, I've never, ever heard him once explicitly say to his audience, hey, you need to go and harass this person and criticize them. Never once. And you know what? Colin Moriarty should not be responsible for people that take it upon themselves to go and criticize somebody and harass them. That's not... Colin Moriarty is not Professor Xavier, where he can fucking control everybody and tell them what to do and influence them. He can't do that. So, you know, these are adults that have made their decisions to go and harass somebody. And I'm sure the first person that would say don't do that is Colin Moriarty. Now, there's also this thing where a lot of these game journos, media personalities, where they conveniently conflate harassment with criticism in order to, like, bounce off the criticism. I think it's perfectly fine whenever one of these journalists has a really bad take or says something really like a lie or really stupid, to go and just like, hey, that's dumb. Especially when they say it on a public platform like Twitter or Facebook or whatever. I think it's perfectly fine to go on there in a respectful way and say, hey, like, what you said is not true. What you said is harmful. What you said could potentially cause this person like harm, impact their careers, especially if it's not true. Knock it off. And then these game journalists go, oh, look, they'll look at that and go, oh, look, see, I'm being harassed. Because they don't want to own up to what they're doing. They don't want to own up to the potential that they themselves might be causing harm to another person. Because it's never them that's causing the harm, right? It's always somebody else. It's always somebody that's not in the circle. And the reason I wanted to use this story is because Gene Park apparently is a part of the circle. Gene Park is known to talk to a lot of these people, has colleagues with a lot of them, friends with a lot of them, and this just goes to show that, once again, these media people will just absolutely devour their own if they step out of line with what they say, with what they want them to do. Like, it's just the lack of self-awareness of some of these game journalists and media personalities is it's astounding. It really is astounding. And another reason that this story bothers me so much is that a lot of these media personalities are demonizing the Last Stand media community, of which I'm a part of. And I've seen there's one particular media personality, again, that I will not name, that has repeatedly, in response to this, insinuated that Last Stand media is run by a white supremacist and continually makes things worse for minority people. I'm sorry, what? What? Like they said that we are just this like horrible, toxic community, which is a lie. And if there are bad people in the community, they do not speak for the majority. I can confidently say that. That to me is just incredibly disingenuous and shallow. That's like me saying, oh, the Dark Souls community is stupid because there are a few people in it that annoy me and that take it way too seriously. What the fuck? Like, what are you doing? Like, what, like, really? Like, really? You're gonna paint an entire audience in these, like, really broad strokes just because a few people may suck? Like, what? Like what the hell? Like what did I do? Like, I didn't do anything. And then another tactic they use to try to stave off criticism is that when people in that community get mad and they criticize those people that are saying those things and propagating those lies, then they go, oh, look, see, my point was proven. See, they're attacking me, they're harassing me. No, they're not attacking you. You hit first. So now these people have to defend themselves because, no, a lot of the, I'd argue 99.9% of the Last Stand media community is wonderful. 99.9% of most communities out there are great and don't propagate bullshit like that, like harassment and death threats. And you know what? I've seen for people that get out of line and be bullies to other people and harass people on Last Stand media, they are quickly removed. I've seen it where Colin Moriarty is like, you're gone. Don't do this. You can disagree with me. You can find things I say questionable, but do not attack others. Do not harass us. Do not harass others whatsoever. They're gone instantly. I've seen it. And the ironic thing is that all these people that talk about, oh, look, this person's team of followers is harassing me. Well, that's like, can I argue that as well whenever you guys put up a story about somebody in the games industry who did really a mildly questionable thing, and then they go, oh, look at that. Look, this person did this. So go do that. Go harass them. Go get them canceled. Get their jobs taken away from them. Get their resources taken away from them. Deplatform them. They do the same thing. Like, they are the ultimate army of hypocrites when it comes to this. And I feel the need to have to come and defend the Last Stand community, because these guys, they're like one of the friendliest communities I've ever been a part of. And I'm very rarely in with like a community of people on the internet. But this one, I'm glad I am, because they're wonderful. And it's ridiculous too, this notion that Colin Moriarty is a white I've seen that explicitly multiple times where they go, oh, he's a white supremacist. Y'all know the definition of a white supremacist, right? Right? Somebody who thinks whites are superior to other races. You know, that doesn't really work when you have a girlfriend who's black. Doesn't really work when one of the co-hosts on your biggest, most popular podcast is Puerto Rican. Doesn't really happen when one of the other co-hosts on the Xbox podcast is a black guy. Yeah, if Colin Moriarty is a white supremacist, he's doing a fucking shit job of doing it. And also this idea too that the community is like, the community makes things worse for minority people. Okay, how? What? Show me the proof. Show me the proof that we as a community have repeatedly caused problems for minority people. You know, we may go to a person who's a minority on Twitter and criticize them for something they say, something bad they write, something, you know, that's not the truth. But that's not harassment. That's not being a bully. That's criticism. And when you say something in a public sphere, you better be fucking ready for that criticism. Or maybe you just don't belong on the internet. And it's the same thing. The only times I've ever seen Colin Moriarty hit at people specifically is when they hit first. Like, there's an infamous example where that guy who does the Washington Post, oh god, what's his name? I can't remember. Well, one of the Washington Post reporters was retweeting a story from Apple podcast where they had this what do you call it? Like a visual of the different games podcasts that are successful on their platform. And one of them was Sacred Symbols. And it was in the middle of the 9 that they showed in a square. And I remember the guy going, oh, the one in the middle is run by a guy who has trash politics. And so he hit first. But what did Colin Moriarty do? Did he hit him back? Did he call him like a retard or something? Like, no. He said, hey, you, come on to my podcast. Let's do an episode of Sacred Symbols. Sacred Symbols Plus. You can come. You can talk to me. We can discuss my trash politics. You can push back on anything. It won't be edited in any way. You can, come on. Like I'm giving you an open invitation to come and call me out and debate with me. And this guy just folded like a house of cards. He just went, no, I'm good. And then that's when Colin Moriarty was like, nope, that's it. Nope. Like I thought so. Just because if you were to come on here, I would destroy your argument. You would fold, and it would look really bad for you. So yeah, I think he said go back to suckling at the Washington Post's teat, which, yeah. You know, I'm fine with when people hit back like that if they get hit first. Hey, you know, what are you going to do? You're going to roll over for these people that keep fucking striking at you? No. And I bet if Colin Moriarty was still active on Twitter, which he's not, everything that he does on Twitter is just like a one and done link to his stuff. And that's it. He doesn't go on Twitter anymore. He's completely disengaged. And that is wonderful. I'm so happy that he did that. More people need to do it. Because for some reason, being online, being on Twitter especially, it brings out the monsters in people. It brings out the absolute fucking worst in people. And it is so just, it's like watching the evolution of humanity go backwards. The de-evolution of humanity. I've been recently watching like old like talk shows from the 60s and 70s. And there's an episode of there's an episode, one of I think it's the Don Rickles show, where he shared a stage with John Wayne. And John Wayne is like one of the most famously conservative, like Republican celebrities in the history of Hollywood. And then you have Don Rickles, who was a lifelong Democrat, who didn't even want to do his famous Reagan inauguration stand-up special that he's like one of his best bits that he ever did. He didn't want to do it because he didn't vote for Reagan, even though Reagan was a friend of his. But Frank Sinatra convinced him to do it, and he ended up doing it. And I was watching that show where John Wayne and Don Rickles were barbing with each other, and I realized, like, wow, you would never see something like that these days. You would never see that. But back then in the 60s, where in the 60s and 70s, where, mind you, racism was a much, 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 much more normal thing back then. Much more normal. There's one bit, I was watching one like interview with Jimmy Stewart. Jimmy Stewart, one of the nicest people in Hollywood ever. And he said that one of the, like, his black coworkers, he called him like Negro. And I was like, oh shit. Like that was shocking to hear that. But I have to remember that was common back then. That was a common thing to say derogatory words like that back in the 60s and the 70s. So why are two celebrities on the complete opposite ends of the spectrum back in the 60s and 70s able to share a stage with one another, despite their vast political differences, despite their vast ideological differences, but we can't do that after supposedly so much progress in fucking 2022? It's like we've gone backwards. It's insane. And just moments like this make me realize, like, wow, this is just... like, these people, these games industry journos, these same people who criticize everything under the sun except anything that they're associated with, the same people from companies that are owned by, like, China and Saudi Arabia that will go and hit at people like Colin and Gene and not have the goddamn self-awareness to see, like, hey, you know, maybe let's criticize the people that are putting food on your table. Are you going to do that? People at Fanbyte? You know, the Tencent-owned media site? Are you going to do that? No. And again, that like an easy conflation would be to say, hey, you know, anyone who works for Fanbyte supports Tencent's support of the concentration camps that are going on in China. They support the removal of gay people from China. They support the racism that goes on there. That, you know... and saying that, that's exactly the same thing as saying, oh, because Colin says some like really stupid things every now and then, that automatically makes him a white supremacist, and that automatically makes anyone who follows him someone who like is a white supremacist who actively harms minorities in the industry. Like, get the fuck out of here with that shit. Get the fuck out of my face with that. I don't want to fucking hear it. Like, I don't want to hear it. It's just, it's so miserable. Like, and for people who are bright-eyed and bushy-tailed who want to come into this industry, you are driving them away. And there's a reason that so many people are leaving traditional games media in droves to go to more fan-funded stuff, to go to individual content creators. And then these game journalists sit back and go, oh, why is that? Why is that happening to me? Well, maybe to find the answer, you should go to a mirror and look at yourself in it and reflect. Because you are the reason why. This, like, I'm not saying a specific person is the reason. I'm saying the collective you. You are the problem. You are the reason that games media is such a nasty, toxic fucking place to work around. They cry all day and night about toxicity and all this other shit, but I have never seen a more toxic community than these fuckos that run these websites, that congregate together on Twitter, that retweet each other's shit to cancel other people. It's like, it's a sight to behold what has become of humanity in the digital age. It really is. Like, it's a fucking sight to behold, man. It's so bad. So I just wanted to end this video by saying, please send some love to Gene Park. Please don't go and I'm fine with you going and criticizing the people that are knocking him, but I also don't want to, like, don't send them death threats. Don't harass them. Obviously, send Gene Park some love. Gene Park don't need this shit. Gene Park's got that long COVID. He doesn't need this shit. Like, come on, have some basic human decency to not fucking harass a guy, to not knock a guy for committing the cardinal sin of talking to somebody he doesn't agree with on many topics. Like, how low of class, how low do you have to be to go to somebody who's suffering through long COVID and, like, knock them while they're down? Like, come on. It's like, come on. Anyway, that's where I wanted to stop for today. I could go on all day about this because it's so disgusting, and it really genuinely made me angry. Like I was, if I sound more muted, if I'm not screaming into the mic, it's because I am angry. I am very, very angry at these media personalities and game journalists who are coming after a community that I respect, coming after a figure that I respect, treating a guy that I have a newfound respect for like absolute shit. And it's so disheartening. And you know what? These guys that don't agree with Colin about games media and how toxic they can be, and then when they come onto the show to actually see it and talk about it and discuss it, you know what your behavior is going to do to it's going to make them change their mind about you. You're proving everything that Gene Park pushed back on Colin about about like games media on that show about. Colin is proving his point. Absolutely right. And you're proving that fucking point for him. That games media is just full of these nasty, disgusting, toxic cretins who wake up, have their morning coffee, go on Twitter, and routinely find people to send their communities after, routinely dig up old shit on other people, routinely take things out of context from game developers and other games media personalities in an effort to get them canceled, to get them more clicks, to get them more likes, get them more followers. It's like staring into hell, basically. It's like staring into a hell of our own making. And it's depressing. Like it really like lowers your opinion of the human race seeing stuff like this. And it's so sad. And I wish Gene Park all the best of luck. And I hope this doesn't discourage him from coming back on Last Stand Media, because he was a really great guest. And I hope this doesn't affect his mental health or anything. That's another thing. The final point I will say before I go, and I know this has gone on a little too long, but I have to say my piece about this. All of these fucking games media personalities claim to be these advocates for mental health, these advocates for positivity and all that shit. Well, they seem to not give a fuck about the mental health of the people that they target and harass and send their followers after and get canceled and get their livelihoods taken away. Ironic, isn't it? You're a mental health advocate and you don't give a shit about the mental health of the people that you're going after. Ironic, isn't it? Anyway, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.